Today, we are going to look at the most disturbing deaths ever captured on live TV, from a news reporter during a routine interview to a comedian performing his final trick. Let's dive right into it. It was 1979 in Clearwater, Florida, when a new Christian-themed kids show called Joy Junction aired on the Christian television network. It featured colorful characters like Sheriff Dawn, Professor Cloudhopper, Whistler Dan, and a ventriloquist named Ron, who performed with his puppet Marty. The show focused on fun and faith, teaching kids about values, kindness, and staying away from bad influences. Ronald William Brown, the man behind the Ron character, was also active in his local Largo, Florida church community. He regularly hosted puppet shows, gave kids rides to church in the church van, and even invited them over for pizza before Bible study. To many parents, he seemed kind and trustworthy, exactly the type of person they wanted influencing their children. The show quickly became popular, with parents loving its wholesome message and kids enjoying the songs, games, and lessons. Soon, Joy Junction expanded nationally, airing on major Christian networks like Trinity Broadcasting and Family Network. It ran for nearly 20 years, from 1979 into the early 2000s, reaching thousands of homes across America. Brown used his platform to teach children about resisting temptation and staying on the right path, all while hiding something much darker behind his wholesome image. In 1998, police stopped Brown and found children's underwear in his vehicle. He claimed they were props for his puppets, and authorities let him go with no further action taken. Years passed without incident until 2012, when investigators looking into an online network involved in disturbing activities came across a man from Kansas named Michael Arnett. When they searched his computer, they found highly inappropriate images involving children, some posed in staged settings. But what really stood out were the chat logs. Arnett had been exchanging messages with a man in Florida, and that man was Ronald Brown. The two had been talking for months on a hidden forum, their conversations going beyond possession of inappropriate content to include detailed and graphic discussions involving children. Brown referenced a boy he knew personally from church, speaking of deeply troubling intentions and sharing diagrams and pictures he had secretly taken of the child. On July 19, 2012, authorities raided Brown's home in Largo. What they found was deeply alarming. Thousands of illegal files, some involving deceased children, along with written plans, drawings, and content dating back to 1978, a year before Joy Junction began. Brown was arrested and charged with possession and intent to commit serious harm against a minor. He admitted to the chats but claimed it was all fantasy and that he never planned to act on it. The court didn't believe him, and he was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison, essentially a life sentence given his age and health. In 2020, Brown died in prison at the age of 65 due to complications from a neurological illness. After his arrest, everything connected to Joy Junction went silent. Networks removed all traces of the show with no statements or press releases, and even cast members distanced themselves. For a long time, the show became lost media, with only a few clips surviving, mainly from old VHS tapes uploaded to YouTube. Ronald Brown wasn't just a performer, he was trusted by parents, surrounded by children, and active in the community, which makes this case so disturbing. It was August 23, 2010 in Manila, Philippines. What began as a routine day for tourists from Hong Kong would soon become one of the most disturbing moments ever captured on live television. Rolando Mendoza, a 55-year-old former police officer, boarded a tour bus at Luneta Park in central Manila. Inside were 25 people, 22 tourists from Hong Kong, a tour guide, a photographer, and the driver. Mendoza was armed with an M16 rifle. He had spent nearly 3 decades with Manila's police force before being dismissed over allegations of extortion. Now, he wanted his job back. As the situation unfolded, Mendoza posted signs on the bus windows with his demands. The main one was simple: reinstate him to the police force. During early negotiations, he released 9 hostages as a show of good faith. The driver also managed to escape, leaving 15 people trapped inside. Television crews quickly arrived, broadcasting the standoff live across the Philippines and internationally. What viewers didn't realize was that Mendoza was watching the same coverage from inside the bus. This critical mistake would soon turn deadly. Police brought in Mendoza's brother, also a police officer, to help negotiate. But in a shocking moment captured on live TV, officers suddenly arrested the brother, accusing him of interfering. Mendoza watched this unfold on the bus's television. His demeanor instantly changed. "I can see a lot of SWAT coming in," Mendoza told Radio Mindanzo Network in a chilling call. "I know they will kill me. They should all leave because any time I will do the same here." The standoff had lasted nearly 10 hours when Mendoza's anger reached its breaking point. "I shot 2 Chinese," he told the radio station. "I will finish them all if the police do not stop." What followed was a chaotic rescue attempt broadcast to millions. Police approached the bus and tried to break in through the back door. Gunfire erupted from inside. Officers retreated, clearly unprepared. The cameras kept rolling as shots continued to ring out. Mendoza, trained in police tactics, knew exactly how to defend the vehicle. He positioned himself strategically, making it nearly impossible for officers to enter safely. The assault team, lacking proper equipment and coordination, struggled to breach the bus. After an hour of failed attempts, police finally managed to enter. By then, it was too late. 8 hostages lay dead. Mendoza himself was killed during the final confrontation, his body later seen slumped near the front of the bus. The aftermath was devastating. Footage showed survivors crawling from the vehicle while emergency crews removed bodies. Hong Kong's government immediately criticized the handling of the crisis. "The way it was handled, particularly the outcome, I find is disappointing," said Hong Kong leader Donald Tsang. Investigations later revealed a series of critical failures. Police lacked proper equipment and training. The negotiation strategy was flawed. Most damning was the decision to allow live media coverage, which provided Mendoza with real-time intelligence about police movements. One survivor, identified only as Mrs. Leong, told reporters her husband had been killed trying to protect other passengers. "I miss him. I actually really wanted to die with him. But I think of my children," she said. She questioned why help took so long. Why was there no one to help us after so many hours? The Manila hostage crisis stands as a stark reminder of how live television can turn a crisis into a catastrophe. When the cameras keep rolling, the consequences can be deadly. The incident strained diplomatic relations between the Philippines and Hong Kong for years. Hong Kong issued a black travel alert for the Philippines, warning citizens against all travel to the country. The alert remained in place for over 4 years. President Benigno Aquino III faced intense criticism for his handling of the crisis. He was notably absent during the standoff and later admitted to communication failures. "I was very confident in the capabilities of our security forces," he stated afterward, a comment that further angered victims' families. In the years following, both countries worked to heal the rift. The Philippines eventually issued an official apology and provided compensation to victims' families. But for those who lost loved ones, no apology could erase what they witnessed that day. A tragedy that unfolded in real time, broadcast to the world, leaving psychological scars that would never fully heal. It was January 16, 2010, in Moscow, Russia. The evening news program Vechernyi Kanal was about to begin its 7 p.m. broadcast on Channel 1 Russia. Behind the desk sat Vera Komarova, the 39-year-old anchor whose face had become familiar to millions of Russians. What viewers didn't know was that this broadcast would be her last. Vera grew up in Novosibirsk, Siberia, in a working-class family. Her father worked at a factory while her mother taught school. Even as a child, Vera showed remarkable poise, often reporting the day's events to amused relatives. After studying journalism at Moscow State University, she quickly climbed the ranks, eventually becoming lead anchor at Channel 1 in 2005. Behind her success, Vera's life was challenging. Divorced 3 years earlier, she was raising her 12-year-old daughter alone while maintaining a grueling schedule. In the weeks before her death, she had been working double shifts, sometimes 16 hours straight. The network was understaffed during the holiday season, and Vera felt responsible for filling the gaps. 2 days before the incident, Vera visited the network's doctor complaining of severe headaches. The physician prescribed pain medication and suggested rest, advice she ignored. That evening, She told her makeup artist Irina that she felt strange and disconnected. Irina noticed Vera's hand trembling as she applied her lipstick. On January 16th, Vera arrived at 5:30 a.m. to prepare for the day's broadcasts. By evening, she had already been working for over 12 hours. Colleagues reported she seemed unusually pale and had taken several pain pills throughout the day. At 7 p.m., Veshcherny Canal began. Vera appeared on screen in a navy blue blazer, her blonde hair perfectly styled. She began with a story about high-profile arrests connected to government embezzlement. For 4 minutes, everything seemed normal. Then, midway through a sentence, something changed. Her speech suddenly slowed. Her words became slurred. A look of confusion crossed her face. The investigation has revealed that approximately 2 billion rubles were... She paused, her eyes unfocused. I'm sorry, Viewers watched as Vera leaned forward, her right hand reaching toward her temple. Then she slumped sideways, disappearing from frame. For 3 seconds, the camera remained fixed on the empty chair before cutting to a pre-recorded segment. Behind the scenes, chaos erupted. The floor director found her unconscious on the studio floor. Paramedics arrived within 7 minutes, but Vera never regained consciousness. At 8:17 p.m., she was pronounced dead at Central Clinical Hospital. The autopsy revealed a catastrophic brain aneurysm that had likely been developing for weeks. The constant stress, lack of sleep, and ignored warning signs had created the perfect storm for tragedy. Despite the network's efforts to suppress the footage, clips of her final moments spread online. The incident sparked debate about working conditions in Russian media. Former colleagues shared stories about the extreme pressure and unreasonable hours expected of on-air talent. Channel 1 aired a brief tribute highlighting Vera's career, without mentioning the circumstances of her death. Her position was filled within a week, and the network continued as if nothing had happened. Today, Vera is remembered not just for how she died, but for her dedication. Her daughter established a foundation in her mother's name to support journalists and advocate for healthier work environments in media. Vera's final broadcast remains one of the most disturbing moments in Russian television history, a reminder that behind every polished news desk sits a real person with real limits. It was June 3, 2013, and afternoon sun cast warm light through the Culinary Network's Chicago studios as familiar sounds of food preparation filled Studio B. The professional kitchen gleamed under television lights, creating the perfect backdrop for Cooking with Passion, one of the network's most popular live cooking shows. Chef Antonio Rossi reviewed his recipe cards as he arranged ingredients on the marble countertop that had become his signature workspace. At 52, the charismatic Italian chef had built a television empire around his passionate cooking style and authentic family recipes passed down through 4 generations. His thick accent and animated gestures had made him beloved among home cooks, and his cookbook, Nonna's Kitchen, had spent 18 weeks on bestseller lists. Today's featured recipe was osso buco alla Milanese, a traditional braised veal dish Antonio learned from his grandmother in Milan. He'd immigrated to Chicago 25 years earlier, with nothing but culinary skills and unshakable belief in authentic Italian cuisine. His restaurant, Rossi's, had become a Chicago institution, but television brought his passion to millions nationwide. Antonio's wife, Maria, and teenage sons Marco and Giuseppe watched from the studio audience. They'd grown accustomed to their father's theatrical cooking style but never tired of watching him transform simple ingredients into masterpieces while sharing stories of their Italian heritage. Today featured a flambe demonstration, a technique Antonio had perfected in high-end restaurants. The dramatic flames and theatrical presentation had become his signature move, always generating excitement. As the live broadcast began, Antonio's enthusiasm was immediately evident. He welcomed viewers with characteristic warmth, beginning osso buco preparation with practiced precision, while sharing memories of cooking with his grandmother. The audience laughed at his animated descriptions of family dinner arguments and his grandmother's strict kitchen rules. The demonstration proceeded flawlessly through 45 minutes as Antonio braised veal shanks and prepared traditional gremolata garnish. His knife skills impressed as he minced garlic and chopped parsley with restaurant-quality precision. As the show neared conclusion, Antonio prepared for the flambe finale, He heated brandy while explaining the technique's science. "The alcohol must be perfect temperature," he said, eyes twinkling. "Too cool and nothing happens. Too hot and you lose control." Antonio's loose-fitting chef's coat, a trademark element, billowed as he moved around the set. The cotton fabric had been starched for crisp appearance under hot lights, making it more flammable than standard kitchen attire. As he reached across the stovetop to adjust pan position, his right sleeve passed directly over the open gas flame. The fabric ignited instantly, sending bright orange flame racing up Antonio's arm toward his shoulder. His initial reaction was patting flames with his left hand, but this only spread fire to his other sleeve. Panic set in as he realized the severity, his movements becoming erratic as he tried extinguishing growing flames, while millions watched in horror. In desperation, Antonio knocked over heated olive oil. The oil spilled across the stovetop and ignited immediately, creating a wall of flames blocking his path to the emergency shower. The sprinkler system activated within 30 seconds, but water pressure was insufficient to control the rapidly spreading grease fire. Crew members rushed on set with extinguishers, but Antonio had already suffered severe burns to his arms, chest, and face. Synthetic materials in his chef's hat had melted against his scalp, and he'd inhaled superheated air and toxic fumes. Antonio was transported to Chicago Memorial Hospital's burn unit, where he succumbed 72 hours later from complications related to severe burns covering 60% of his body and smoke inhalation damage. The show was immediately canceled, and the Culinary Network faced intense scrutiny over kitchen safety protocols. The morning of July 15, 1974, dawned like any other in Sarasota, Florida. Inside the fluorescent-lit studio of WXLT-TV, 29-year-old news anchor Christine Chubbuck moved with purpose through the familiar corridors. Her colleagues noticed nothing unusual about her demeanor, her dark hair neatly styled, her manner composed. None could have imagined that behind her calm exterior churned a storm of despair that would culminate in one of the most shocking moments ever captured on American television. Christine had battled depression for years, something known to her close friends and family. In her personal life, she often felt isolated, starting a dateless wonder club in high school to mask her insecurities with humor. By 29, she was still single, and her mother observed that her loneliness deeply affected her. She had so many rejections, her mother later recalled, and was so sensitive to them. This morning, Christine requested that her live broadcast be recorded, an unusual step. She wrote a script departing from the show's typical style, yet her colleagues saw nothing alarming in her behavior. The show's producer later remembered, "She was in a good mood, she was doing her thing, there was nothing unusual." At 9:30 a.m., Christine went live, starting with a brief news segment. She calmly read through stories until a technical glitch caused a short break. Then, looking directly into the camera, she made a startling announcement. "In keeping with Channel 40's policy of bringing you the latest in blood and guts, and in living color, you are going to see another first, an attempted suicide." Moments later, Christine pulled out a .38 caliber Smith & Wesson revolver from her puppet bag, the same puppets she used to entertain children at a local hospital, and shot herself behind her right ear. The control room fell silent. Technical director Lyford Rickard initially believed it was a joke, perhaps a prop gun with a blank. "I thought she had fired a blank or was playing a practical joke and pretending she had been shot," he later said. When he rushed to the studio and found Christine unresponsive at her desk, the horrifying reality became clear. The station immediately cut the broadcast, switching to a public service announcement and then a movie. Staff called for emergency help, and Christine was taken to Sarasota Memorial Hospital, where she died 14 hours later despite doctors' efforts to save her. News of the incident shocked her co-workers, the community, and the nation. Many questioned what drove her to such a public act. Christine's brother Greg revealed she had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, then called manic depression. Even with her openness about mental health struggles, no one expected such a drastic step. Her mother had long worried about her daughter's isolation and the deep sadness that often accompanied her. In the weeks before her death, Christine had shown unusual interest in sensitive story topics, asking her station manager about covering suicide and interviewing local police about the proper way to commit suicide with a gun. She claimed these inquiries were for a story she was working on. These actions went unnoticed as warning signs. 1 week before the event, Christine joked to a colleague about purchasing a firearm, a comment dismissed as dark humor, but which hinted at her intentions. She said, Wouldn't it be wild if I blew myself away on the air? The colleague later recalled. After her death, police found her script, which included details of her planned suicide, showing how meticulously she had prepared. The script even included a third-person account of her being taken to the hospital, and the statement that she died or is in critical condition. Her story inspired the 1976 film Network and continues to fascinate, with 2 films about her life premiering at Sundance in 2016, Christine starring Rebecca Hall and the documentary Kate Plays Christine. These films explored the complex factors behind her decision and the ethical questions surrounding media sensationalism that Christine herself seemed to be protesting in her final act. The video footage of her death was sealed away by the station's management and has never been seen publicly, a final mercy in a story defined by its public tragedy. It was September 12, 2016, and afternoon sun streamed through Television City's skylights as Studio 33 buzzed with excitement before another $1 Million Mind taping. The iconic game show set gleamed under bright lights, its familiar blue and gold creating an atmosphere of pure possibility. 200 guests filled tiered seating, energy crackling as they prepared to witness someone potentially win life-changing money. Robert Chen adjusted his tie nervously in the green room, reviewing notes one final time. At 45, the high school math teacher from Riverside had dreamed of this moment since watching as a teenager with his parents. His encyclopedic knowledge made him legendary at Roosevelt High School, where he'd taught 18 years. Colleagues joked Robert knew something about everything, the faculty's go-to guy for trivia nights and academic competitions. 3 years of applications, phone interviews, and auditions had led here. His wife, Linda, and twin 16-year-old daughters, Amy and Jessica, sat front row, wearing matching Team Chen t-shirts. They'd driven from Riverside that morning, barely containing excitement watching Robert's lifelong dream unfold. Robert's preparation had been methodical. He'd studied encyclopedias, memorized historical dates, practiced with online quiz games for months. His students helped create practice questions during lunch breaks, turning his classroom into an impromptu game show set. The principal granted him a personal day, and fellow teachers pooled money for the lucky tie he wore. Host Michael Sterling had been impressed by Robert's calm demeanor and quick thinking through earlier rounds. The teacher had methodically worked through increasingly difficult questions, using lifelines strategically. By reaching the final question, Robert had already won $500,000, more money than he ever imagined. The $1 Million Question appeared as dramatic music filled the studio. In 1969, which Apollo mission first successfully landed humans on the moon? Multiple choice options displayed. A. Apollo 10, B. Apollo 11, C. Apollo 12, D. Apollo 13. For a man who'd taught space exploration to countless students, this should have been cake. Robert smiled confidently, his mind immediately recalling countless lessons about the historic moon landing. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, Michael Collins, names as familiar as family. He'd used this exact question in classroom quizzes, knowing without doubt Apollo 11 was correct. As Robert opened his mouth to give his final answer, he suddenly pressed his right hand against his chest, face contorting in obvious pain. The studio audience watched confused as the confident teacher doubled over, breathing becoming labored. Michael Sterling initially thought nerves, the $1 Million moment overwhelming even prepared contestants. "You all right, Robert?" Michael asked, stepping closer with genuine concern. Robert tried speaking but managed only a weak nod as sweat beaded his forehead despite air conditioning. Chest pain intensified rapidly, radiating down his left arm in classic heart attack fashion. Robert's legs gave out as he collapsed against the podium, sliding to the studio floor as his family screamed. The show's medical team rushed onto set as cameras kept rolling. Linda Chen pushed past security, reaching her husband's side as paramedics began emergency treatment on the game show stage. The audience watched in stunned silence as CPR was performed, where moments before a man had been on the verge of winning $1 million. Robert's daughters cried uncontrollably as medical personnel worked frantically, celebration replaced by desperate urgency. Despite 20 minutes of aggressive resuscitation, Robert Chen was pronounced dead at Cedars-Sinai at 4:47 p.m. from massive heart attack. The episode never aired, but 200 witnesses were forever changed by watching a man's final moments during what should have been his greatest triumph. It was October 6, 2007 in Bangkok, Thailand. The children's program Mani and the Golden Frog was broadcasting live on Channel 5, as it had every Saturday morning for years. Behind the colorful puppet stage stood 26-year-old Krit Sorachai, whose expressive voice brought the character of Tong, the Golden Frog, to life. No one could have predicted that this episode would be his last. Krit grew up in Chiang Mai, the son of a traditional Thai puppet master. From childhood, he showed remarkable talent for bringing inanimate objects to life. While studying at Chulalongkorn University, he began performing at local children's events. His unique ability to create distinct voices caught the attention of Channel 5 producers, who hired him part-time for their flagship children's show. Despite his on-screen success, Krit's life had been challenging. Friends later revealed he had been working 3 jobs to support his family. Besides puppeteering, he worked nights at a call center and weekends at his uncle's restaurant. He often slept just 4 to 5 hours between shifts. The week before the incident, he had mentioned feeling unusually tired and experiencing fluttering in his chest, but attributed it to stress and caffeine. The morning of October 6th began normally. Krit arrived at the studio at 7:30 a.m., reviewed the script with co-host Suchada, and prepared his puppets. The first segment went smoothly as Mane, operated by Suchada, and Tong taught young viewers about friendship. 20 minutes into the broadcast, however, something changed. During a scene where Tong was supposed to explain sharing, Krit's performance took an unexpected turn. His puppet began swaying oddly, and instead of following the script, he started repeating phrases that weren't in the show. The curtain is thin, and we're almost out. His voice had changed too, deeper, almost slurred. Suchada tried to redirect him, improvising lines to bring the skit back on track. "Tong, are you feeling okay today?" she asked through her Manet puppet. "I can see through now," Krit replied in Tong's voice. "The light is very bright." Seconds later, viewers heard a thud as Krit dropped behind the stage. The puppet fell limp, dangling from the edge of the set. Suchada, thinking it might be an improvisation, continued briefly before realizing something was wrong. When Krit failed to reappear for the next scene, the director cut to a commercial break. Behind the scenes, crew members found Krit unconscious on the floor. A production assistant with medical training began CPR while someone called for an ambulance. Despite their efforts, Krit never regained consciousness. Paramedics arrived within minutes but couldn't revive him. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The autopsy revealed that Krit had suffered cardiac arrest caused by undiagnosed myocarditis, an inflammation of the heart muscle. Doctors explained that his exhaustion and stress had likely exacerbated the condition. His strange final words were attributed to oxygen deprivation affecting his brain in the moments before collapse. Channel 5 immediately canceled the episode and issued a brief statement mourning Krit's passing. However, a home recording of the broadcast leaked online, spreading rapidly across Thai social media. Viewers were disturbed by the eerie nature of his final performance, with some claiming his last words seemed prophetic. The incident sparked national conversation about working conditions in Thailand's entertainment industry. Krit's family revealed he had been working 80-hour weeks across his 3 jobs, highlighting the precarious situation of many young performers. In response, the Thai Actors Association called for mandatory health screenings and reasonable working hours. Today, a small memorial plaque hangs in Channel 5's studio, remembering the young puppeteer whose life ended too soon. Mani and the Golden Frog eventually returned to air with a new puppeteer, but the show was never quite the same. Krit's final performance remains one of Thailand's most disturbing live television moments, a tragic reminder of the fragility of life, even when the cameras are rolling. It was February 14, 2018, and pre-dawn darkness over Atlanta was giving way to sunrise as the city prepared for Valentine's Day. Inside WSB-TV studios, the familiar energy of morning show preparation filled the air as the team readied for Atlanta Morning, the city's highest-rated news program. Michael Thompson arrived at 3:45 a.m., his usual time for script review before the 5 a.m. newscast. At 48, he'd become Atlanta's most trusted morning voice over 12 years. Known for his warm personality and genuine connection with viewers, his salt and pepper hair and kind eyes had made him a father figure to many, earning numerous community service awards. For 3 weeks, Michael had been experiencing crushing headaches, the worst of his life. The pain started behind his left eye and radiated across his forehead, sometimes accompanied by dizziness he blamed on television stress. His family doctor prescribed stronger medication, but the headaches kept worsening. Co-anchor Jennifer Martinez had worked alongside Michael for 8 years. Their on-air chemistry was legendary, making Atlanta morning feel like conversation between old friends. His wife Karen and 16-year-old daughter Emma watched every morning from home. Karen had grown concerned about the headaches and scheduled a neurologist appointment, but Michael insisted on maintaining his normal schedule. The Valentine's Day show featured romantic segments and live proposals. As 5 a.m. began, Michael's professionalism was evident as he welcomed viewers. He and Jennifer shared love stories and bantered about dinner plans, their easy rapport creating the comfortable atmosphere that made the show Atlanta's favorite morning routine. The first hour proceeded normally with news, weather, and Valentine's features. Michael interviewed a florist and participated in a cooking segment. His energy seemed typical, though Jennifer later recalled he was squinting more under studio lights. At 6:23 a.m., during a live interview with a couple celebrating their 50th anniversary, Michael suddenly stopped speaking mid-sentence. He'd been asking about their marriage secret when his words simply trailed off, leaving awkward silence. Jennifer thought he was pausing for effect, but his confused expression indicated something was wrong. Michael's left hand moved to his head as he struggled to form words, his articulate speech becoming slurred and incomprehensible. The elderly couple looked concerned as Michael swayed in his chair, his face turning pale and grayish. Jennifer tried covering, but it was clear something was terribly wrong. Without warning, Michael collapsed forward onto the news desk, his body going limp as he lost consciousness. The impact knocked over coffee cups and scattered papers, creating chaos broadcast live to hundreds of thousands of viewers. Jennifer screamed his name while signaling for help, her professional composure cracking. Studio cameras remained focused as emergency medical technicians, coincidentally at the station for training, reached Michael within 90 seconds. His breathing was irregular, pupils dilated and unresponsive, classic signs of massive stroke. Viewers watched in horror as CPR was performed where moments before Michael had been sharing Valentine's joy. The station cut to commercial after 3 minutes of live emergency coverage. Social media exploded with concern as viewers shared shock at witnessing their trusted anchor fighting for his life on television. Michael was transported to Emory University Hospital, where doctors confirmed a massive hemorrhagic stroke from a ruptured cerebral aneurysm. Despite aggressive treatment, Michael was pronounced dead at 11:34 a.m. from severe brain hemorrhaging. The show went off air for the week as WSB-TV grieved their beloved colleague. Viewers flooded social media with tributes, remembering how Michael had brightened their mornings and connected them to their community. It was October 13, 2008, in Santo André, São Paulo, Brazil, and 15-year-old Eloa Cristina Pimentel was at home working on a school project with her friend Nayara Rodriguez da Silva and 2 male classmates. The afternoon study session was meant to be routine preparation for upcoming exams, with textbooks and notebooks scattered across the small apartment's dining table. Eloa was a bright student with dreams of becoming a teacher, her warm smile and infectious laughter making her popular among her peers at the local high school. The cramped apartment on Rua Antonio Cardoso had become Eloa's sanctuary after her family moved there 3 years earlier. Her mother worked double shifts at a local textile factory to support them, often leaving Eloa to care for her younger siblings while maintaining excellent grades. Despite the financial struggles, Eloa remained optimistic about her future, spending hours tutoring younger students and volunteering at the neighborhood community center. Her teachers consistently praised her maturity and dedication, seeing in her the potential to break the cycle of poverty that trapped so many in their working-class neighborhood. The relationship with Lindenberg had begun when Eloa was just 11 years old, an age gap that should have raised immediate concerns among adults in their community. What started as innocent childhood affection had gradually transformed into something darker as Lindenberg's possessive tendencies emerged. Friends and family members later recalled how he would become jealous when Eloa spoke to other boys, monitoring her activities and demanding to know her whereabouts at all times. When Eloa finally found the courage to end the relationship at age 13, Lindenberg's behavior became increasingly erratic and threatening. But that afternoon, their quiet study session took a dark turn when Eloa's 22-year-old ex-boyfriend, Lindenberg Fernandez Alves, suddenly entered the apartment with a firearm. The relationship had ended 2 years earlier when Eloa was just 13, but Lindenberg had never accepted the breakup. Reports later revealed he had become obsessed with her, unable to move on from their teenage romance that had grown increasingly possessive and unhealthy. Lindenberg let the two boys leave but kept Eloa and Nayara inside, starting a hostage situation that would last 5 days and be broadcast across Brazil. Police quickly responded, with the Special Tactical Actions Group, known as GATE, taking over and beginning negotiations, hoping to resolve the situation peacefully. The next evening, Nayara was released unharmed, but 2 days later, police made a surprising and dangerous move. They asked the 15-year-old to go back into the apartment, saying her presence might help calm Lindenberg. As the situation dragged on, media attention exploded. News outlets provided live updates day and night, and the case became a national obsession. Things went even further when Rede TV journalist Sonia Abro called Lindenberg live on air while he was still inside with the girls. She spoke with both him and Eloa, and the call was broadcast to the whole country. Legal experts later said the call interfered with the police operation, with a civil case filed against Abro, accusing her of putting lives at risk. By October 17th, the standoff had gone on for over 100 hours. Police said they heard gunshots and decided to break in. GATE, along with military police shock troops, forced their way inside. Lindenberg resisted, and during the struggle he used the firearm. Nayara was injured in the face but managed to leave the apartment alive. Eloa was hit twice, once in the head and once in the lower body. Cameras were rolling as she was carried out unconscious and taken to a hospital, but she didn't survive. On October 18th, doctors declared her brain dead at 11:30 p.m., and she was removed from life support. Her organs were later donated and saved 7 lives. Around 10,000 people attended Eloa's funeral. Nayara survived and went through a long recovery, and in 2018, she was awarded 150,000 Brazilian reais in damages after the court found the state responsible for what she had gone through. Lindenberg was sentenced to 39 years and 3 months in prison, and to this day, Eloa's story remains one of Brazil's most disturbing and tragic cases. It was the morning of August 26, 2015, in Roanoke, Virginia. For viewers of WDBJ-7, it seemed like a regular broadcast. Reporter Allison Parker, 24, and cameraman Adam Ward, 27, were conducting a live interview with Vicki Gardner, a local Chamber of Commerce director at the scenic Smith Mountain Lake in Moneta, Virginia. Allison was known for her vibrant spirit and dedication to journalism, while Adam was valued for his positive outlook and recent engagement to colleague Melissa. Together, they were a promising pair, but this routine broadcast quickly turned tragic. At around 6:45 a.m., Allison was mid-interview with Gardner when a man in black approached from behind. The broadcast, initially peaceful, was interrupted by loud, unexpected sounds that threw the scene into chaos. The attacker, later identified as Vesterly Flanagan, had approached and started shooting. The scene aired live, shocking viewers before the broadcast abruptly ended. Gardner, who was hit, lay still on the ground, hoping to avoid further harm. She survived after undergoing emergency surgery. Tragically, Allison and Adam did not survive. Allison passed away almost instantly, while Adam succumbed shortly after. Viewers in the newsroom were left stunned, struggling to process the tragedy. In the aftermath, the WDBJ-7 team discovered the attacker was a former colleague. Vesterly Flanagan, who also went by the name Bryce Williams, had once worked as a reporter at WDBJ-7 before leaving in 2013. Known for a history of conflicts and tense interactions with co-workers, Flanagan often displayed volatile behavior and was let go after repeated disputes. Over time, Flanagan had built up resentment toward Allison and Adam. In a manifesto, he outlined grievances against them, though these accusations were found to be baseless. Further investigation showed Flanagan had a similar record of conflicts at previous stations, leading to dismissals elsewhere. Following the incident, Flanagan fled in a rented car. Hours later, he uploaded footage of the event to social media, a move that added to the pain for the victims' families and friends. He also posted messages attempting to rationalize his actions, though investigators concluded his motives were rooted in long-standing personal struggles rather than any specific incident involving Allison or Adam. Police tracked Flanagan's car on the highway, but before they could apprehend him, he crashed his vehicle. In his final moments, he took his own life, leaving a community devastated by his actions. Allison and Adam's deaths had a powerful impact not only on WDBJ-7, but also across the country. Both were respected young journalists with careers just beginning. WDBJ-7's general manager Jeff Marks expressed the station's heartbreak, noting the deep affection the WDBJ-7 team had for them and the profound sorrow felt throughout the organization. A memorial honored Allison and Adam, attended by family, friends, and colleagues. Adam's fiancée, Melissa, who had witnessed the event from the control room, was deeply affected. They had been planning a future together, now tragically ended. Allison's father, Andy Parker, expressed his grief, calling her his bright, shining light. The tragic deaths of Allison Parker and Adam Ward remain a stark reminder of how quickly violence can erupt and the lasting impact it leaves on families, colleagues, and communities. Their story continues to fuel discussions about workplace safety, mental health awareness, and the responsibilities of social media platforms in managing disturbing content. It was March 18, 2014, and pre-dawn darkness blanketed Phoenix as KPHO-TV prepared for another morning broadcast. The desert city stirred awake while inside the studio, the familiar rhythm of live television hummed through the corridors. Sarah Mitchell had arrived at 3:30 a.m., same as always. At 31, she'd become Phoenix's most trusted meteorologist over 6 years, beloved for her sunny personality that matched Arizona's endless blue skies. Her atmospheric science degree from ASU gave her the technical foundation, but viewers loved how she made complex weather patterns feel like friendly conversation. For a week, Sarah had battled persistent headaches and dizzy spells. Colleagues noticed her rubbing her temples during commercial breaks, downing cup after cup of coffee. The brutal morning schedule, up at 2:30 a.m., working until noon, had always been demanding but lately felt crushing. Her forecast that morning promised perfect spring weather. Sunny skies, 78 degrees, ideal for outdoor plans. She'd prepared her graphics the night before, showing the high-pressure system bringing Phoenix its famous reliable sunshine. The morning team felt like family. Anchor John Hook and Sarah had worked together 4 years, their easy chemistry becoming part of thousands of morning routines across the valley. Sarah delivered her 5 a.m. segment flawlessly, standing confidently before the green screen. Her bright smile masked the severe headache building since arrival. Studio lights seemed blindingly intense, forcing her to squint while pointing at weather maps. During commercial break after her 5:15 update, Sarah mentioned feeling lightheaded. John suggested sitting down, but she refused. Viewers depended on her 5:45 forecast. At 5:44 a.m., Sarah took her position for the final weather segment. The teleprompter displayed her script about beautiful conditions ahead. She began with characteristic enthusiasm, discussing perfect spring weather. Then everything changed. Sarah's speech began slurring mid-sentence. She paused, confusion washing over her face as she struggled with the teleprompter. Her left hand moved to her head while technical weather terms became jumbled, incomprehensible. The camera stayed focused as she swayed, professional composure cracking. John watched in growing alarm from the anchor desk. Sarah attempted continuing but suddenly collapsed behind the weather wall, disappearing from view. The sound echoed through studio microphones, shocking the control room. The camera lingered on the empty weather wall before cutting to commercial. Thousands had witnessed Sarah's collapse during their routine morning forecast. EMTs, coincidentally at the station for safety training, reached Sarah within 90 seconds. Despite immediate CPR and advanced life support, she was pronounced dead at 6:23 a.m. from a massive brain aneurysm. The morning show went dark as staff processed their colleagues' shocking loss. Viewers flooded phone lines with disbelief, many having watched Sarah's final moments unfold live on television. It was September 28, 2012, in Phoenix, Arizona. What began as a carjacking would soon become one of the most disturbing moments ever broadcast on live television. Jodan F. Romero, a 33-year-old man in a black Raiders jersey, was pacing outside a Denny's restaurant near Interstate 10. Concealed in his waistband was a .45 caliber Glock, and in his mind was a plan that would end in tragedy. Romero had already attempted one carjacking that morning. This time, he followed two young men to their maroon Dodge Caliber, slipped into the back seat, and pulled his gun. Pointing it at their heads, he ordered them out, keeping the keys. One victim ran back to the restaurant and asked the hostess to call 911. By 10:54 a.m., police were in pursuit. What followed was a high-speed chase that would last nearly 2 hours, eventually capturing the attention of national news networks. Fox News was the first to broadcast it live, with anchor Megyn Kelly chirping, "Somebody carjacked a Dodge Caliber?" Romero drove east for 5 miles, ignoring police sirens. At one point, he made a U-turn and fired his weapon at officers, hitting the driver's door of a police car. This wasn't just a man running from the law. He was actively dangerous. For the next hour, Romero held steady on Interstate 10, zigzagging past other vehicles at speeds reaching 90 miles per hour. The city gave way to suburbs and then to desert. News helicopters followed overhead, broadcasting every turn to a growing audience. Behind the wheel, Romero was a man with nothing left to lose. His life had been marked by tragedy. At 16, he had watched his older brother die in a shooting. His father died of cancer a year later. When Romero was 20, his mother and her boyfriend were murdered in a home invasion. By 33, he had accumulated several felony convictions and had recently violated parole. He knew he was going back to prison. As Fox News anchor Shepard Smith narrated the chase, his tone shifted from light banter to growing concern. "Look at this," Smith said. "Dingbat here has gotten off the freeway. This guy is right smack dab in the middle of nothingness." At 12:24 p.m., Romero exited in Tonopah, a tiny community about 50 miles west of Phoenix. He turned onto a dirt road in a patchy field and stopped. Above him circled 2 helicopters, one from Phoenix's Fox affiliate and one operated by police. Romero stumbled out of the car, the driver's door still open. He began sprinting awkwardly across the field, his pants drooping, before pushing through some brush and stopping in a small patch of dirt. Smith's voice grew increasingly nervous. "Now this scares me. What are you doing out in the middle of nowhere? Getting out of the car." Romero spread his legs slightly, knees locking, as he fumbled with something in his hands. The white of his Raiders jersey gleamed in the harsh desert sun. What happened next shocked millions of viewers. Without warning, Romero raised his gun to his head and pulled the trigger. A gasp was heard in the Fox studio, followed by Smith's desperate cries,
Get off it, get off it, get off it, get off it!"
But it was too late. Despite a 5-second delay that should have prevented the broadcast of such graphic content, a technical error allowed Romero's suicide to air live across the nation. When police arrived, Romero was face down in a pool of blood. They detected a faint heartbeat and began CPR, but it was futile. At 1:14 p.m., a doctor pronounced him dead over the phone. After a commercial break, a somber Shepard Smith returned with an apology.
"You really messed up, and we're all very sorry. That didn't belong on TV."
What viewers didn't know was that 2,500 miles away, Romero's sister Nature was watching too. Earlier that morning, she had received a text from Jodan. "Thanks for everything." When she saw the car chase on TV, she called police saying, "I have reason to believe that's my brother." Nature later revealed that Romero wasn't the violent criminal portrayed in media reports. He was a father of 5 who cooked family dinners and played basketball with his kids. He had struggled after prison, trying to rebuild his life while facing the near certainty of returning to incarceration. The Fox News broadcast sparked debates about media ethics and the responsibilities of live television. But for Nature, it was more personal. "It's one thing to lose somebody under those circumstances," she said. "But then when you're grieving and going through that, to have to see it all over the internet, it's unspeakable." Jodan Romero's final moments remain one of the most disturbing broadcasts in television history, a tragic reminder of the unpredictable nature of live TV and the real human stories behind the spectacles we consume. It was December 8, 2016, and the morning sun streamed through the windows of the KXAN News studio in Austin, Texas, as Patricia Williams prepared for another day of delivering the news to her beloved community. At 51, The veteran morning news anchor had become a fixture in Austin households for over 15 years, her warm personality and genuine care for local stories making her a trusted voice that thousands of viewers relied on to start their day. Patricia had built her career on covering community celebrations, local charity drives, and the human interest stories that connected neighbors across the sprawling Texas capital. That December morning, Patricia was excited to cover the holiday season's most heartwarming stories. The show's lineup included segments about local toy drives, holiday charity events, and year-end community celebrations that brought Austin residents together. Her co-anchors and production crew had worked with her for years, creating a family-like atmosphere in the newsroom where Patricia's infectious laughter and mentoring spirit made everyone feel valued and appreciated. But for several weeks, Patricia had been struggling with severe headaches that seemed to worsen with each passing day. The pain would strike suddenly during editorial meetings, forcing her to excuse herself to find a quiet place to recover. She attributed the symptoms to work stress and the demanding schedule of morning television, which required her to wake at 3:30 a.m. and maintain high energy levels throughout the broadcast. Patricia had always been dedicated to her craft, often working through minor illnesses and personal challenges to ensure her viewers received reliable news coverage. Her colleagues noticed she seemed more tired than usual, occasionally pausing mid-sentence during rehearsals or appearing momentarily confused when reviewing teleprompter scripts. Patricia dismissed their concerns with her characteristic smile, insisting she just needed more sleep and perhaps a vacation after the holiday season. The production team had no idea that their beloved anchor was experiencing the early warning signs of a catastrophic medical emergency that would unfold in front of thousands of viewers. During a live interview segment about local holiday charities, Patricia was speaking with a representative from the Austin Food Bank about their Christmas meal distribution program. The conversation was flowing naturally as Patricia asked thoughtful questions about volunteer opportunities and donation needs. Then, without warning, she suddenly stopped speaking mid-sentence, her words trailing off as she stared blankly at the camera with a confused expression that immediately alarmed her co-anchor. Patricia appeared disoriented and lost, her usual professional composure replaced by obvious distress as she struggled to understand what was happening to her. She began speaking incoherently, her words slurred and disconnected as her co-anchor tried desperately to continue the interview and maintain some semblance of normalcy. The camera operators and production crew watched in horror as Patricia's condition rapidly deteriorated before their eyes. Then Patricia collapsed at the news desk during the live broadcast, her body going limp as she fell forward onto the papers and coffee mug that had been part of her morning routine for 15 years. Viewers across Austin watched in shock as paramedics arrived on set and began emergency treatment, their professional urgency contrasting sharply with the cheerful holiday decorations that still adorned the studio. The station eventually cut to commercial, but thousands had already witnessed the medical emergency unfold in real time. Patricia was rushed to the hospital where she was diagnosed with a massive stroke that had caused irreversible brain damage. Despite the medical team's best efforts, she died 3 days later, surrounded by family members who had flown in from across the country. The morning show went off the air for a week as the team grieved and processed the traumatic loss of their colleague and friend. Viewers flooded social media with tributes, sharing how Patricia had been part of their daily routines for years, her presence providing comfort and connection in an increasingly disconnected world. A journalism scholarship was established in her name at the University of Texas to support aspiring broadcast journalists who shared her passion for community storytelling. It was August 26, 2015, and morning mist clung to Smith Mountain Lake's shores as the sun crept over Virginia's tranquil waters. The Bridgewater Plaza shopping center stirred quietly to life, store owners preparing for another peaceful day, unaware their lakeside community would soon become ground zero for national tragedy. Allison Parker adjusted her earpiece in the WDBJ-TV news van, reviewing notes with the enthusiasm that had made her a viewer favorite in just 14 months at the Roanoke station. At 24, her infectious smile and natural presence promised a bright future in broadcast journalism. Her boyfriend, Chris Hurst, anchored the evening news at the same station, two young journalists building careers and dreams together. Adam Ward positioned his camera with the precision that made him WDBJ's most trusted photographer. At 27, 4 years of experience had earned him respect for technical expertise and compelling visuals under pressure. His fiancée, Melissa Ott, produced the morning show, their recent engagement celebrating love blooming in the newsroom. Adam's steady presence behind the lens made him Allison's preferred partner for important assignments. The morning interview featured Vicki Gardner, executive director of Smith Mountain Lake Regional Chamber of Commerce, discussing the area's 50th anniversary celebration. The live shot was scheduled for 6:45 a.m. during morning. Hosted by Kimberly McBroom and Leo Hirschkorn, Southwestern Virginia viewers had grown accustomed to starting days with WDBJ's trusted faces. Allison harbored anxiety about former colleague Vester Lee Flanagan, terminated 2 years earlier. Working under the name Bryce Williams, he'd filed EEOC complaints and made threatening statements about the station. Management had implemented security measures, but threats seemed to fade with time. As the live shot began, Allison's professionalism radiated through her characteristic warmth. Adam's flawless camera work captured the scenic lake backdrop and engaging conversation. Home viewers saw nothing unusual, just quality local journalism that had made WDBJ trusted for decades. At exactly 6:45:27 a.m. mid-interview, a figure approached from outside camera view. Flanagan had driven to the location, waiting for the perfect moment. Armed with a Glock 19, he positioned himself feet from the unsuspecting crew. The first shots rang out without warning, echoing across the quiet plaza as Allison screamed and tried to run. Adam's camera captured chaotic footage as he fled while clutching his equipment. The live feed showed terrifying glimpses before the camera crashed down, transmitting distorted concrete images. In the studio, Kimberly and Leo watched in horror as colleagues' screams filled the audio. The station cut to commercial immediately, but thousands had witnessed the attack in real time. Flanagan fired multiple close-range shots, striking both journalists before fleeing in his rental car. Vicki Gardner was wounded but survived. Emergency responders arrived within minutes, but both WDBJ employees were pronounced dead at the scene. The entire attack lasted under 30 seconds, its impact reverberating through journalism forever. The station struggled to continue broadcasting as news spread. Traumatized viewers flooded social media with shock and disbelief. The journalism community rallied around WDBJ, with stations nationwide paying tribute and discussing the unique dangers reporters face in the field. It was September 27, 2007 in Yangon, Myanmar, and for 10 days, crowds had taken to the streets in peaceful protest. Buddhist monks in red robes led the demonstrations, walking calmly and chanting for freedom. What began as protests against rising fuel prices had become something much bigger. People were now calling for democracy, frustrated with poverty, military rule, and the lack of basic rights. In the middle of all this was 50-year-old Kenji Nagai, a Japanese journalist who had arrived just 2 days earlier. He worked for a small outlet called APF News, and Kenji had spent years reporting from dangerous places: Afghanistan, Iraq, Palestine. His mission was always the same: go where others wouldn't and show what was really happening. He was known for his dedication to capturing the truth, no matter the personal risk involved. Kenji's colleagues often described him as fearless but never reckless, a man who understood the weight of documenting history as it unfolded. His small apartment in Tokyo was filled with awards and photographs from conflict zones around the world, each image telling a story of human suffering and resilience that mainstream media often overlooked. Despite offers from larger news organizations, Kenji remained loyal to APF News, believing that independent journalism was crucial for exposing injustices that powerful governments preferred to keep hidden. The veteran war correspondent had developed an almost supernatural ability to sense when situations were about to turn violent, a skill that had kept him alive through countless dangerous assignments. His camera equipment was always within arm's reach, and he had trained himself to continue shooting even under the most extreme circumstances. Friends back in Japan worried about his increasingly dangerous assignments, but Kenji felt compelled to bear witness to the struggles of oppressed people worldwide, viewing his work as a sacred duty rather than just a profession. That morning, Kenji stood near the Sula Pagoda in downtown Yangon, the area full of protesters waving flags with the peacock symbol linked to Aung San Suu Kyi's political party. Despite the tense mood, the crowd remained peaceful until military trucks showed up. Soldiers got out holding rifles and shields, and protesters stayed put, some yelling at the troops. The military government saw these gatherings not as peaceful, but as a direct threat, issuing a clear warning: leave in 10 minutes or face the consequences. Then came the military's response. First tear gas, then gunfire. First into the air, then directly into the crowd. Kenji kept filming. His last recorded words caught on camera. "The army has just arrived. The army is over there. They are heavily armed." Then the shooting began, and Kenji was hit and fell to the ground. Even then, witnesses say he continued to hold up his camera, trying to document what was happening around him. A photo by Reuters photographer Adres Latif captured a haunting scene. Kenji lying on the ground, a soldier standing over him with rifle in hand, his camera still in his grip. In the next frame, the soldier walked away and Kenji didn't move again. At first, the Myanmar government claimed he had been caught in the crossfire, but video evidence later showed the truth. A soldier had pushed Kenji to the ground and shot him at close range. An autopsy in Japan confirmed this. The bullet had gone through his chest, hit his heart, and exited from his back. Kenji was the only foreigner to lose his life during the protests, with at least 9 others also dying. News of Kenji's death shocked people in Japan, with the government demanding answers that never came. Myanmar later apologized, but no action was taken. In 2023, 16 years later, journalists said they had received Kenji's missing camera from someone who wanted to set things right. The camera was returned to his sister, and that final footage showed the protests, the chants, the chaos, and Kenji's final moments. No one has ever been held accountable, but Kenji's work hasn't been forgotten. The Burma Media Association created the Kenji Nagai Award to honor journalists in Myanmar. It was November 22, 1963, in Dallas, Texas. The autumn sun cast shadows across Dealey Plaza as Lee Harvey Oswald, a 24-year-old former Marine with cold eyes, positioned himself by a 6th-floor window of the Texas School Book Depository. His fingers wrapped around a mail-order rifle as crowds gathered below, completely unaware they were about to witness a moment that would shatter America's innocence forever. At 12:30 p.m., 3 shots split the air. The first missed, but the second and third found their target with devastating precision. Kennedy slumped against his wife, Jacqueline, her pink suit soon stained crimson. Texas Governor John Connally was also wounded but would survive. Kennedy, just 46, was rushed to Parkland Memorial Hospital where doctors fought futilely to save him. His death sent shockwaves across a stunned nation. Oswald's troubled life had been building toward this moment of infamy. Born in New Orleans in 1939, tragedy marked him from the start. His father died before his birth, leaving his mother Marguerite to raise him in constant struggle. As he grew, Oswald retreated into radical ideologies that promised meaning to his unremarkable existence. In 1956, Oswald joined the Marines, showing promise with a rifle but plagued by disciplinary problems. His fascination with communism drove him to defect to the Soviet Union in 1959, where he married Marina Prusakova. Disillusioned even there, he returned to America in 1962 with his wife and infant daughter. Back on American soil, Oswald's behavior grew increasingly alarming. He embraced radical causes, acquired weapons, and in April 1963, attempted to assassinate former General Edwin Walker, a dry run for November's horror. By Kennedy's visit, Oswald had secured a job at the book depository along the motorcade route. After the shots that changed history, Oswald fled through the chaos he created. When Officer J.D. Tippit approached him, Oswald fired 4 shots, leaving the officer dying in the street. He slipped into a nearby movie theater but was quickly apprehended. For 2 days, a nation held its breath, waiting for answers, but they would never come. On November 24th, as millions watched their television screens in real time, Oswald was being transferred from Dallas Police Headquarters. Suddenly, Jack Ruby, a local nightclub owner, lunged forward from the crowd. The flash of his .38 revolver was followed by a single shot. Oswald's face contorted in agony as the bullet tore through him. He was rushed to Parkland, the same hospital where Kennedy died, and pronounced dead, taking whatever secrets he held to his grave. Ruby claimed he acted out of patriotic grief, unable to bear the thought of Jacqueline Kennedy having to return for Oswald's trial. Many suspected darker motives. Was he silencing Oswald to protect others? Though sentenced to death, Ruby's conviction was later overturned. Before a new trial could begin, cancer claimed him in 1967, becoming yet another character to take potential answers to the grave. With both men silenced forever, questions have only multiplied. The Warren Commission's conclusion that Oswald acted alone has failed to satisfy a nation's hunger for truth. Even today, according to a 2023 Gallup poll, 65% of Americans believe Kennedy's death was a conspiracy, a testament to how deeply this televised horror has scarred the American psyche. Had Oswald lived to face trial, would the truth have finally emerged? We'll never know. What we do know is that during his brief time in custody, Oswald maintained his innocence, claiming he was just a patsy. His words, spoken with a defiant calm, have fueled decades of speculation. The murder of Oswald on live television, the first such killing broadcast nationwide, added another layer of trauma to an already devastated nation. The image of Oswald clutching his abdomen as he was led away by police officers became one of the most iconic and disturbing photographs of the 20th century. Thanks for watching. Want to watch more? Click on your screen now.